You know, when we think about how great leaders are chosen, we usually imagine a story of ambition, or politics, or maybe a popular vote. But then, there's the story of Saint Fabian. Get this, he wasn't a cardinal, he wasn't a bishop, he wasn't even a priest. He was just a regular guy visiting Rome who, in the year 236 AD, became Pope. How? Well, it had something to do with a dove. Yeah, let's get into it.
So, really, how is a great leader chosen? Is it all about skill, political savvy, or is it something else entirely? In Fabian's case, the answer pretty much defies all modern logic.
That's right. Sometimes it all just starts with a dove. And I mean that literally. This isn't some metaphor. It's the actual, unbelievable beginning to one of the most incredible leadership stories you'll ever come across.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're going back to the year 236 AD. The church in Rome is gathered to pick its next leader, the new pope. And this is where things get, well, unexpected.
Okay, just try to picture this for a second. Fabian, a total layman, is just in the crowd. He's not a candidate, he's probably just there to watch. Then, out of nowhere, a dove flies in and lands right on his head. The people there, they went wild. They saw it as a clear sign from heaven this was their guy. And just like that, this complete stranger was unanimously elected pope. It is an absolutely wild way to start a 14-year reign. So, the guy chosen by a bird is now in charge. You might be wondering, what kind of leader was he? Did this miraculous start actually lead to anything effective? Well, turns out it did. This was a time of order, the reign of a true builder.
14 years. That's how long he led. And after that bizarre election, his time in charge wasn't some chaotic footnote in history. Nope, it was a long, stable period of peace and growth, which was exactly what the church needed at the time.
And you see, he was so much more than just a miracle. He was a brilliant administrator, a real builder. He brought structure where there was chaos, dividing Rome into 7 districts, each with a deacon in charge. He also knew how important it was to remember the past, so he made sure to keep records of the Christian martyrs. He was building an institution that was really designed to last.
This timeline shows it all pretty clearly, right? You've got his election in 236, the reorganization a few years later. Everything's going smoothly. But then, you see that last date? 250 AD. After 14 years of building and peace, everything was about to be turned upside down.
And this brings us to the moment the peace was absolutely shattered. This was the time of the emperor's persecution.
In that one year, 250 AD, the new Roman emperor, a guy named Decius, decided to launch a systematic, brutal persecution against all Christians across the entire empire. This wasn't some local problem anymore. It was a direct threat to the very existence of the faith coming straight from the top.
So here was the emperor's demand. Everyone had to publicly sacrifice to the Roman gods, which meant renouncing Christianity. Or else. For Fabian, the head of the whole church, this was the ultimate test. He could compromise his beliefs and live, or he could stand firm and face the emperor's fury. He chose his faith. And that final, define act is what defines the second half of his story. He became both a bishop and a martyr, and his legacy was, quite literally, set in stone.
Pretty chillin', right? This is the actual inscription they found on his tomb in Rome. Just a few simple words, but they tell the whole story. Fabian, bishop, and martyr. This is a real physical link to this man and the incredible price he paid. He was thrown in prison, and he died for what he believed in.
And you know, that title, martyr, is so important. It doesn't just mean someone who died. It means someone who was killed specifically for what they believed. It's a title that Fabian earned with his very last act of courage.
So when we look back on his life, this is the picture we get. It's not just one thing. He was the wise administrator who brought order during a time of peace, and he was the courageous shepherd who stood his ground when that peace was destroyed. The two halves of his story really make the whole.
And his legacy is still very much alive. Every single year on January 20th, he's remembered and celebrated for his life as a builder and his death as a witness.
So this all leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. Looking at Fabian's life, what do you think really defines a leader? Is it the stability and order they build when times are good? Or is it how they react, what they stand for when a crisis hits? Fabian's story seems to suggest that maybe, just maybe, a truly great leader is defined by both.